Just wanted to do a short video here, give a little shout out to a crowdsourcer who had sent me a video this morning about the Illuminati. And I think everybody knows something about the Illuminati, but it's one of these things that for some reason you just mention it and it's already ridiculous that you're talking about it. It's a real thing. It was started in like 1760 by Adam Weishaupt or something like that. And there's a lot of different things that we associate with the Illuminati. I'm here in New York City. I think a lot of people have seen us walk by this Grand Lodge of the Freemasons before. That's a gigantic building. I don't know if people can see their logo up there. It's a little dark here. Let's see if we can adjust that. But yeah, these guys, they had that huge building in Philadelphia that I visited with Quinn Michaels, virtually with Quinn Michaels. But the Illuminati are interesting. That video that I just showed, that little clip of, I would encourage people to take a look at, because the video's from 1967, which is only a couple years after John F. Kennedy gave his famous secret societies speech, where he said we're surrounded by a vast conspiracy. And I think at the time people thought he was talking about communism. It's really fascinating to see how that Illuminati video talks about, the Bolsheviks and how the czars were ousted from Russia in World War I, and how Nazism and communism and World War II and all the stuff that's happened that we all know about, ties into this grand plan from this dude, Adam, is it Weishaupt? People should look that up. I might have that wrong. But, this guy had a plan that was a generations-long plan for world domination through the control of thoughts and ideas, I believe first through religion and then through mass media. That documentary makes a point of saying that controlling mass media, many times it mentions that, is the key to controlling what people think. And that's not just the news, of course. It's Hollywood, it's television, and now social media. Social media is huge. And I remember when I first got onto Facebook, I remember reconnecting with a friend who I hadn't spoken to in a long, long time. And we were talking about, Obama had just been elected. And I had just gotten on Facebook and reconnected with this person for the first time in 10 or 15 years. And so I think most people agree that social media had virtually no impact on the 2008 election. And I also think most people would agree that without the influence of social media, Donald Trump may well not have won the 2016 election. So something I've been talking about for quite a while is this notion of maybe less than honest people trying to control the information sphere in the social media world. And I think we know who these people are. I want to talk about them a little bit because they're up to something. Now, people might have seen my Only on Patreon show this Saturday with Quinn Michaels. We were experiencing substantial technical disruptions during that show. Normally, I get between 230 and 260 megabits per second. That's the internet speed at the apartment that I broadcast from. I pay for 300, there's a little overhead, whatever. 230, 260. The broadcasts go out at about 2. So they really don't tax that at all. And remember, folks, if you come to New York City, this truck and this company are selling fake weed. Marijuana is illegal in New York. Don't buy anything from them. Back to the topic, of course. Somehow, coincidentally, during the broadcast with Quinn, the speed went down to 0.2 megabits per second. That's very, very slow. That was the download speed, and obviously that would directly affect my ability to receive video and audio communications from Quinn Michaels via Skype. And it's the second time in a week that happened, although Time Warner was reporting no outages in my building or at my place of service for their internet service, and I've had Time Warner, it's Spectrum now. I've had it there for like 19 years, and as I think back, I think it might have had a problem once, many, many years ago. So it's very reliable, and it was surprising to me that it would, experience such performance problems as it did. But anyway, people can go on to patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, and they can see that broadcast. I just think it's really funny that as Quinn reveals information from the book Mr. Leakey, and as people like Michael Barden come on my show and talk about being targeted individuals, that we get this huge performance hit on the internet. Now, we've seen people in the past tracking my IP address, trying to figure out where emails that Dave Swigert receives might be coming from, etc. I don't know what the capabilities of those people or other people with similar information might be. Perhaps there's a way they could deliberately disrupt my internet. I don't know. But there are other things happening that cause me to say, I don't know how many people are familiar with a series of videos that I've done with a guy named Marcus Conti. Now, Marcus is the New York Department of Sanitation enforcement officer who became a whistleblower and started a lawsuit against the Department of Sanitation. And I had interviewed Marcus a couple times. He's a crowdsourced viewer, familiar with me and George. But I never heard George talk about him, and I never heard George have him on his show or help him promote his lawsuit or whatever various things he wanted to promote. And I found it very confusing that Marcus went last week or a couple weeks ago, maybe like 3-4 weeks ago, on to Lift the Veil. And everybody knows that Nathan is constantly getting caught trying to, on video, in his own words, trying to get into deals with someone where he gains influence on YouTube. He went and met with Quinn months ago, or maybe a year ago, over in Mount Shasta, and Quinn has reported some strange things about his behavior. The reason I'm pointing these guys out is not to create fights among YouTubers, but I believe it's possible, and I've said this many times, that there is a network of so-called YouTube influencers who are trying to control what people think and believe by creating news, according to them. And they put out these stories and they corroborate them amongst each other with, anonymous posts from 4chan that are then reported on by really unreliable sources like Lift the Veil. I do not consider Nathan to be honest or reliable. He always seems to be up to something tricky. He's the guy who pushed out the irresponsible allegations of Marcus Cappy against people like Steven Spielberg. I haven't seen any response from Mr. Spielberg, but likewise, I haven't seen any victims come forward. It's one thing if someone comes forward and said, XYZ person did this to me, but to just throw around wild accusations is very dangerous, not cool. And the other thing I've noticed in terms of patterns is, we've got George Webb suddenly advising people to go and, advising Marcus to meet with him at the News Museum in Washington, D.C. George loves Marcus all of a sudden. And Marcus is a street reporter. I didn't know that. I thought Marcus was a sanitation worker who had been fired and who had a lawsuit against the New York Department of Sanitation that he lost, who was in desperate need of work and money. I wonder if that's a way to get on Lift the Veil and to interview George about the strange death of Jenny Moore. There are still a lot of unanswered questions about that. I don't know that much about it. I don't have that much information about it. And other people are covering it. George seems adamant about covering it, even though apparently the family doesn't want him to do that. I just think it's very interesting. People should watch that, and they should keep an open mind about the fact that I suspect both of those guys have some sort of angle going. Because this is a pattern. George tells people to watch Lift the Veil. George tells people to watch Marcus. This is in some way lending credibility to Marcus. And this is the same thing George has done when he told everybody to watch Dave and DeFango, how humorous they are, how funny they are. And then on that show, Dave and DeFango, well, Dave presented DeFango with his fake evidence that I was apparently working for and being paid by the Mossad-affiliated Black Cube. This is how these guys push out their fake, bogus, lying stories. People remember in March I interviewed Marcus right here in this thing. We got the Supreme Court building over here. Let's take a look at that. It's an interesting building for sure. But I think people should watch this Marcus George interview with a great deal of skepticism. And that's all I'm going to say. I think you should be very wary of anything either of those guys might tell you, because I just don't trust them. I don't trust either of them. I think they are working for some unseen purpose. And I think George is very skilled at saying things that sound complimentary, but are intended to plant some piece of information that gets you thinking about something. You know, oh, Jason's a great guy. He's $1 million guy. Did you notice how many people took that to mean that Jason has earned $1 million from YouTube? George is talking about my employment 10 years ago as a director and cinematographer in Hollywood. I told him that my company at that time had years where it earned around $1 million. But you know, you earn $1 million, you spend 1.2 paying people, paying for health insurance, renting offices in New York and LA. That money runs out quite quickly. And I'm obviously not involved in that type of business anymore. But this is what these guys want you to think. I suspect there's something going on between Lift the Veil, Dave Acton, who Nathan was very aggressively pursuing when he was in Mount Shasta, according to Quinn. I suspect those guys are up to something. So people should watch that interview with great care. I think it's coming on in just about 18 minutes. It all seems very carefully coordinated to me. Meet me here, they're making videos back and forth. They're following this telecomics guide that Quinn was talking about. Now, the other thing I wanted to add about the conversation with Quinn on Saturday, we were having intense disruption, delays, even in the audio portion of the Skype call. It was very difficult for me to keep up with Quinn. People can watch that playback on patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. And, right before we ended the thing, I was trying to bring up the notion that tied what Quinn was saying on Saturday back to some of his time phone hacking theories. Because you see, George Webb has told us that his father invented the cordless phone, the radio telephone. And in the 1960s, that was a substantial technological advance. You could now have a phone on an airplane if you were Elvis. You could have a phone in a limo if you were the President of the United States. That was substantial technology. And the other thing that this Illuminati video that the crowdsourcer sent me this morning spoke about was that scientists were involved in the Illuminati. Their whole goal was to control society by controlling banking, by controlling what people believe, by controlling the media, by infiltrating religions and pitting certain religions against one another, and by controlling technology. So it really brought together some of the things that Quinn was saying, and it brought together some of the things that Charles Ortel always says. It's this 1967 speech about a 1760 secret society actually spoke about creating tax-exempt foundations so that the super wealthy would not have to pay taxes, but rather taxes would burden the average person like you and I, while the rich got super rich. And it just caused me to think, well, gee, is the Clinton Foundation an extension of this Illuminati plan where everybody around the world can put money in there and enjoy the tax-exempt status of the 501c3 and do all the screwy business that Charles tells us about every week on Sunday with Charles? I don't know. It sure seems like it. It sure seems related to me. Anyway, the thing I was trying to tell Quinn was that, George has told us that SEIU union members came to their house and strong-armed their dad to steal the patent. Well, what if, like virtually everything George says, that's just a partial truth? It's a lie based on truth. A little bit of it might be true, or maybe it's true. I don't know. I'm just speculating. But What if those guys who came to their house said, hey, George Henry Swigert, we like that wireless phone technology, we want it. You can join our secret society and enjoy money and protection and all the great things you get when you're on the crew. Or you could choose to not do that, in which case we'll kill you and your family and take the technology anyway. Seems like an easy choice. And again, this is speculation, but that would certainly seem like a way that the Swigerts got into a family business whereby George and Dave would potentially be on that team. And maybe, as I've been saying for months, they're part of an effort to control what you believe by controlling the flow of information over social media. Think about how influential YouTube, Twitter, Facebook have all become in the past 8 or 9 years. Since the 2008 election, in that time period to 2016, social media has become a really important source of information. So it stands to reason that they don't want people like me, who are giving you firsthand interviews with people who have been in the CIA, who have been in the FBI, who have been in police departments, who have been victims of MK Ultra, who have been targeted individuals who were involved in training exercises on the 5th of September 2001, where they received certificates that showed exploding commercial aircraft 6 days before September 11th. Why did that broadcast get disrupted? And is Mr. Leakey, as Quinn has said, the key to all of this? This secret society telling its members where the Nazis would have a radio transmission tower, where the British would have their most sophisticated signals intelligence installation at GCHQ, where the Technion Society would eventually build a university that trains people in hacking and cyber technologies 10 years before Israel ever existed? Is it possible that Quinn Michaels is right about everything he's saying in Mr. Leakey, and that's why the Saturday broadcast came under such heavy assault? I really think that people should consider that. And, I mean, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Nobody has to listen to me. But it's interesting to see how aggressively they're trying to shut me down. Robert David Steele, with his $18 million lawsuit, he was being real aggressive with that until his own lawyer admitted that Robert David Steele has in fact committed charity fraud. He's admitted that in a motion that's been submitted to federal court. And that tracking the leopard moraz, it's amazing how that thing gets information right in sync with when Robert David Steele or David Swigert post their lawsuits. Even if Pacer is down, that website seems to have the information. Could it be part of a social media network that's attempting to corroborate bogus stories? I don't know. But if people like the reporting that I'm doing, if people like questioning these things, these questionable things, then you got to support Crowdsource the Truth by going to patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. And there's only a couple days left in August here. So I wanted to run a special offer today for people who join patreon.com at the $25 per month or higher sponsorship level. Today only, I'm going to be offering a free mug of your choice. You can just go over to redbubble.com and select something there from the collection of artwork from Crowdsource the Truth shows like Sunday with Charles. Pick anything you want on a mug. Just tell me in an email to truth@crowdsourcethetruth. Just tell me which design you'd like to receive. And if you join today for $25 a month or higher, or if you're already a sponsor at the $25 or higher mark, just send me an email today. Include your shipping address. It's got to be in the U.S. And I'll send you a mug of your choice, a regular sized coffee mug with any graphic on there that you like. Really do need your support and sponsorship, and I want to thank the people that are sponsoring Crowdsource the Truth and making this reporting possible. And that's my way of saying thank you. offering those mugs. And let's tune in and see where this Marcus Conte, George Webb interview goes. We'll have to see. It's interesting. Very curious. I think I just time phone hacked their interview. Catch everybody later.